jacked and then got smart, or were you like smart and then we're like, all right, I'm gonna apply this knowledge to then get jacked, like chicken and the
Mm.
egg type situation?
Yeah, I was pretty big coming out of undergrad, going into grad school. I mean, hopefully, I'm the smartest I am now, but I'm definitely not the biggest I've ever been. There was a time there where when I was the biggest I've ever been, I was probably just out of school. But yeah, I mean, I've always just loved weight training, and it kind of led me to down the path that I got into. I mean, selfishly, getting into the field that I got into was purely out of like, I wonder what information I could use to get bigger. Like that was the impetus to go to graduate school. Um, but yeah, it was a direct correlation of like, as I got smarter, I made better decisions. But then that smartness, what a stupid thing to say. As the intellect grew at a certain point, the business started to grow, and then that starts to chew into your being big time. And then I ended up with less of getting big time. But I had a business that's fulfilling, and that's sort of like where we're at now. So now it's just sort of like, I train hard still, but it's not like when I was competitive or anything like that.
So I know you were a hockey player. When you started lifting, were you already playing hockey, or was it like when did you start that? And was it more for like hockey optimization, or did you just like getting a pump in?
Yeah, I got into working out between the between ninth and 10th grade, and I played hockey my whole life. I think I could skate before I could walk. It was kind of a byproduct of growing up in Canada, and showed decent promise at a fairly young age. And then at a point was like, oh, okay, I understand. If I'm going to take this to the next level, weight training is probably going to be something that I can do alongside, a bunch of other stuff. Uh, but yeah, so the original, at least formalizing my weight training, was around conditioning for hockey, and um, I just took to it and got bigger and got stronger and got bigger and got stronger to the point where I was arguably, uh, maybe I don't want to say too big, but hockey, yeah, like as a goalie, I was the heaviest guy in my league as a goalie, which is pretty rare. I remember I didn't play on a great team, and there was a goalie. We all have equipment on. We all look the same size, and we were playing this team in the playoffs. And I got to know a lot of the refs. I played in the league for a few years. So one of them actually trained out of my gym, and one of those goalies, so the team was far better than us, was like, "Hey, if you haven't been pulled by the end of the third period, do you want to fight?" And the ref like started laughing because we were like warming up at center ice, and he's like, "Go home and go online and look up this kid's height and weight. And if you still want to fight him next game, because it was a playoff series, I will tell all the refs. And at the first puck drop, you guys can fight." And the guy, I was like so confused, and I just kind of laughed. And then I came back the next game, and the guy was like, "Never mind." I mean, I finished my hockey career at 245, and I was like, I don't know, 5'11", 6 foot. Which hockey, if anyone knows, especially as a goalie, was quite big. So, yeah, it kind of was a smooth transition. I liked training for hockey more than I liked hockey, and then I just kind of stuck on with the weight training from there.
So as a goalie, how is your training different than a defenseman or attack? I don't even know a lot of positions, but like, how is that different? Because you're in the net most of the time, but you have to be crazy, flexible and strong at the same time. So, what did your training look like as compared to somebody who's doing a lot more of the cardio conditioning stuff?
Yeah, I mean, because the equipment you wear is so heavy, the conditioning becomes a big piece of it. So it's often said that the goalie should be the best skaters on the team. So if you stripped a goalie down to wear the relatively light player equipment, they would be probably equally as fast and conditioned. A lot of lower body strength, a lot of lower body flexibility, a lot of uh, having a favorable body composition as a goalie is probably something you're going to see more often now than back in the day. But most goalies are in really, really good shape just because reaction time is a difficult property to train, and it could be argued in research that it's an impossible property to train. But if you have a more favorable body composition, meaning you have more lean body mass than fat than non-lean body mass, so you're not carrying excess weight, you're going to be able to act on these reflexes a little bit quicker and do it more efficiently. So, not always the case, but on average, I would say the goalies are in better shape on the team. So that plays a big part of it. And then a lot of it is just pattern recognition, right? Like you don't technically have time if you think about conscious thought and the time it takes to process an input and then act. There's no act, like, it's all reaction. So a lot of it is just reps. Like, you get to be a better goalie by just facing more pucks and putting yourselves in more situations, because you're almost like in the sense of a batter is making a decision on whether or not he's going to swing on a pitch at the launching point of the ball before the ball's even left the hand, right? Because he too doesn't, like a goalie, doesn't technically have time for to react, or to think, at the very least, probably a better way to word. By the time that stimulus reaches the eyes, down to the muscle, back up to the brain to make a decision, it's like you're already struck out, or the puck's already behind you. So, yeah, it's just a lot of exposure to different situations, practicing positions. But yeah, strong lower body, favorable body composition, and you got to be a little bit nuts to want to stand in the way of, 17, 18-year-old kids ripping 95, 100-mile-an-hour slap shots. So yeah, a little bit of mixture of all that get you pretty far.
So transitioning out of hockey into the world that you're in now, did you know that this was the route that you were going to take? Kind of, I know you're a doctor of chiropractic medicine. You do a whole lot of sports performance stuff, and I know I've heard you talk. You're like, you call me whatever you want. I just get people. I get results, and I respect that a lot. But as your hockey career ended, what was the next step for you?
Yeah, I mean, the hockey career could have kept going. It was sort of a decision of go to grad school or kind of continue and try and make it into the league, which was very, very low percentage likelihood that that was going to be a successful endeavor.
Giving up
So
the Canadian dream.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? I walked away from my last hockey game, I think, between the second and third period, and I was like, I'm done with this. Haven't looked back. Haven't had skates on since. That was, I don't know, 2010 maybe. The 2010, probably 2011. And yeah, so transitioning into that, I was in undergraduate for human kinetics or kinesiology, and had sort of a favor towards biomechanics, and got into chiropractic college. I was a personal trainer at the time. I was like, oh, they kind of do the same thing. They make more money, drive cooler cars, set their own schedule. I was like, "Yeah, I'll just do that." But no, I mean, as far as like setting my sights on what I'm doing now, I didn't know this wasn't a thing you could do back then. Like, well, I don't really know how to describe my job. Every day is so distinctly different, but like, sort of just one opportunity at a time. I knew I wanted to be around sports. That was always a constant for me. Um, so that was something where I was just like, okay, we'll just say a yes to every opportunity that we can in the sports world as I go through school. And it slowly and steadily became clearer as I went through. But no, as far as like, if you were to tell me October 1st, 2013, when I walked into grad school for my first day, I think that's right, 2013, 2011, that 10 years out of school, I would be a business owner and practice only with NFL athletes or pro tennis players, or I wouldn't have a practice per se, and I would have traveled to 70 plus countries. And uh, uh, yeah, no, I'd say you're insane or you're on drugs. But yeah, here we are, man. It's been a bit of a ride.
So your business Prescript, can you kind of explain the methodology and like what exactly it is and why it has blown up the way it has over the past years and just continues to?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that last one for you, but yeah, so Prescript actually started as a training company. So Jordan, my co-founder, and I, both chiropractors, went through school together, got out of school, stuck around. We were in like the San Francisco Bay Area, and we both opened similar practices. I was practicing in a powerlifting gym. He was practicing in a CrossFit gym. And we would just get together and commiserate about how poor we were and how bad life was, and like what we should do, and share thoughts about like client management softwares, or electronic medical record softwares or scheduling softwares, and try and figure out a way where we can help each other out. And then we sort of fell into a niche of getting more athlete weightlifter-esque patients rather than general population. And yeah, we started off just sort of like aggregating the client presentations that we would see on a weekly basis, and realized that we're seeing a lot of the same stuff, and it's distinctly different than what most chiropractors see. Like, most chiropractors in necks and low backs, we were kind of having shoulder, hips, and spines, right? So that's sort of where we were sort of pigeonholing ourselves in the niche of the local athletic community. And fair enough, barbell sports kind of being both of our sub niches, not super not super forgiving on the joints, especially if you don't do it correctly, or especially if you do it super heavy. So uh, we started to be like, all right, well, how can we scale these interventions? We thought very similar about exercise. So, the exercises we were showing our clients, which were maybe a little bit deviated from the norm of what like a rehabilitation or PT or chiro would be doing, that was like scaled up to the level of an athlete. Um, we started to record them, like honestly, on our cell phones at first, and we'd upload them to a private YouTube channel, and we'd link them to spreadsheets in Google, and we would put these things together. And now we had this tool that we could send to our patients. We're like, oh, here you go. Um, and unfortunately, that kind of backfired because like, oh, now we make less money because our patients get better quicker, and now they're not coming in. That sucks. But like, well, we could probably sell this on the internet. So that's kind of where Pre-Script early days was, and both of us were putting out educational content on social media. And then in 2017, 3, 4 years into the company, maybe, um, we had someone reach out to us from a large commercial gym, actually simultaneously a large commercial gym internationally and one here in Canada. So all of a sudden we had an opportunity to teach, and like, will you develop courses? And I, just out of interest, boredom, frustration, was writing a book. I didn't really know what the book was going to be, but I was just, a blog post that just kept going. And I was 20,000 words into a book at the time, which is now the Pre-Script Level 1 manual. And I was able to turn around these courses for these gyms really quickly. One was like a body transformation gym that had issues with injuries. One was this large gym here in Canada that wanted an assessment course for the personal trainers. And they had like almost 400 clubs, 5,000 trainers. And he kind of just made a snap judgment when they came to me and was like, oh, yeah, no, sure, I can make Pre-Script courses for you. And they're like, what's that? And I was like, I don't know yet, but we're going to put it under the company. So in 2017, we shifted the primary core of the business from training to education. And we sort of hit our stride, I guess. I was on the road every weekend for like 3.5 years, from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Hong Kong to Dubai to Shanghai to San Francisco, everywhere, kind of in between. And yeah, I would just teach live. And then the only way you could take one of our courses if you work for one of these gyms, and started documenting a lot of it on social media and got a lot of interest. I'm like, well, how do I take a course? How do I take a course? It's like, get a job at one of these places. And then just kind of like literally September 17th, 2018, maybe, I was like, this is dumb. I don't have an exclusivity agreement with anyone. I should. And it's not entirely what I would do if I put a course together. Like, they had very specific problems in both of these gym environments that I came in to solve. But I was like, there's probably bigger rocks if I were to do it myself. So I did. And then we started the Pre-Script Level 1 course, and I finished the manual. And then, the rest is, I don't want to say the rest is history. We're not done yet, but yeah, that's really kind of how we came to be. We started as a training company. We had an opportunity. We wanted it to be scalable outside of me, and we kind of just said yes and figured it out.
So is this something now still, I mean, it sounds like you changed the business model around where now can people now, like the everyday individual, take the Pre-Script course, learn what you guys have put out there and apply it to their own training?
Yeah, so we have about 12 courses under our curriculum currently. So the spine of the course, no pun intended, is level 1, level 2, level 3. Anyone can take it, but if you're, a fitness professional of various capacities, whether you're a chiropractor, physical therapist, personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, all of our courses are accredited for continuing education units with pretty much every governing body there is. So it's not a gatekeeper to anyone taking it, as far as like, oh, you have to be these things. We actually have I would say about 30% of the people who take the courses take it out of their own self-interest. Athletes, we've had pro athletes from every sport, every major sport in North America take it. So there are guys who, you watch Sunday Night Football. Those are students. There's some guys who play that are students of ours. There's strength staff in every pro team, or sorry, every pro league, not every team yet, that have taken our courses. And then there's Pilates instructors from Thailand, and then there's I'm trying to think, strength and conditioning coaches from the Czech Republic, or there's personal trainers from Dubai. So everyone can take it, and then I think people just have their own incentives. So we definitely gear our efforts so that our fitness professionals do get recognized for what they're taking, that they do get an accelerant component, that they're not just taking it just because. So we're accredited, all the major governing bodies, NASM, NSCA, ACE, which is bigger in Southeast Asia, even though it's American Council for Exercise, SIMSPA, which is most of Europe, Australia, and about 25 European countries, including the UK. And then we have the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners and the PT board. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's cool. It's fun, and then the community gets very like eclectic, where you have, we had an NFL kicker at our at level 4 as a student next to a guy who's a coach in the Northwest Territories, which is like almost in the Arctic Circle, with a girl that runs a sports training facility in Tallahassee, Florida, all in the same room. So it makes for some interesting dinners, that's for sure.
Love that. So, I mean, we could jam about athletic performance and what it's like to train professional athletes all day, but I would say the most majority of people who listen to the show are like the everyday fitness, I would call it like hobbyist, right? Who's trying to improve their movement quality, they're trying to get out of pain, they're trying to lose body fat, they're trying to, put on size, put on muscle. One of the things I've been hearing a lot and just like being in the health and wellness space myself too is like people just have this negative connotation or misconception of chiropractors. And I personally have had both incredible, amazing experiences with chiropractors and also traumatizing experiences with chiropractors. So, what do you think some of the common misconceptions are about chiropractic work? And then also, is chiropractic work the fix to the problem, or is it just supplementation? Should it be in supplementation to something else? Kind of a double-sided question there.
Yeah. I mean, as not an elected official of chiropractors, I don't know if I have the jurisdiction to really comment on it. It's like, yeah, I'm sure your traumatic experience was traumatic. I don't question that. I know some of the kids I went to school with, and I wouldn't let them fucking ride my bicycle, let alone, touch me with their hands or anything for that matter. And I hate to like, it's so tried, right? Like, well, there's bad people, and I don't give a fuck. I don't care, honestly. Like, and as potentially, morose as that might sound, and it's just, if you're serious about taking your health serious, you vet, right? Like, if you're serious, and that's the thing. It's like people want to. There's a difference between being serious about taking or being serious about taking your health serious, and then being serious about having people think you take your health serious, right? Like, people are they're they're listening to 4-hour podcasts on some advanced neuroscience serotonin bullshit on Huberman, and you're signing light bulbs up your asshole every morning. It's like, okay, you just wanted people to look, but then you go on Yelp or you go to like the Joint or some bullshit thing like that, and it's like, oh no, the chiropractor. It's like, okay, so you just want to kind of have the illusion that you take your health seriously, right? So it's, and I'm not here to defend or defame anyone, but it's like at the end of the day, it's your fault. And that's true of picking a chiropractor. That's true of picking a life partner. That's true of picking a fucking apple at the goddamn grocery store. And it's like no one wants to take responsibility. And it's like that's kind of where the problem lies with everything. So, and I've had it like that. I don't even bother anymore. Like I sit on airplanes next to people like, oh, like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm a drug dealer. Leave me the fuck alone. Because it's just like, the burden of responsibility is on you. The access to information is everywhere. And if you care, you're going to vet. But people are, they're reading about for hours on the different sources of vitamin D, but then they're just going to fucking Yelp and then they're ending up on someone's table. It's like, look, I don't give a fuck magnesium citrate or whatever versus glycinate. You're going to give me a PubMed research article, but you spent 30 seconds on vetting the person who's going to have you by the fucking neck. Like, it's just such a tired conversation. And it's one that is never had by people that actually take their health seriously. So I think it really comes down to like, oh, I have my. It's like, okay, all right. Are you 6% body fat? No. Do you fucking run a sub 4.5? No. Do you drink? Period. Yes. All right, then shut up. Then shut up and stop crucifying this one thing. And don't get me wrong, like these guys are idiots and girls are idiots. Like there are definitely bad practices out there, and I'm not here to defend them, but I'm also like every single time some son of a bitch cries wolf, it's like, okay, and what other dumb shit are you doing that you're not critical of? Like I could be super critical of everyone. I'm really good at it. Watching people is my entire fucking job. whether it's physiological or psychological. So it's just like I don't really have anything to say as like kind of a bad guest answer as that is, but hopefully that nothing to say speaks volumes because it's just like, can we stop? Like they're not going anywhere. There's still schools all over the fucking place. I could swing a dead cat and hit a chiropractor in the street. It's on you, dog. Right? Like whoever's listening, it's like take if you want to take it seriously, take it seriously. If not, then shut up.
So, what are the things that you think are the prime movers to keep people off the table in general? So we don't even have to have this conversation.
Learn the principles, but that's hard. Everyone likes a nice, everyone thinks they know how the body works because they know how to use the apps. But when this thing fucking breaks, we got to go to a real engineer. And it's like, don't get mad when your iPhone breaks and you don't know how to fix it. It's like you're not a fucking engineer. Like there's this thing where people think the body is under some sort of obligation to make sense to them. It's incredibly complicated. And people don't even like being exposed to things they don't understand. So it's just like staying off the table. It's like, yeah, learn some principles. And here's the thing. And I believe I'm sampling this from Stan Efferding. And he is so eloquently put. And from a guy like Stan, it really lands. It's you show me someone who's never been hurt, I'll show you someone who's never won anything. So it's like if
Mm.
you want a participation trophy, then nerf yourself and keep your 5 reps in reserve and don't ever use barbells and do your morning routine and don't lift unless you've got 8 hours of sleep. And if you feel tired, then don't go to the gym. But it's like again, I have nothing to say to these people. And like, look, mediocrity is a choice, and that's okay. But don't try and get amazing results by reverting to the mean. So it's like I don't really know what to say to people who should try and stay off the table because it's like you're going to get hurt if you want to try, and everyone I work with is trying for something. So it's like this is wow. I sound such like a cynical son of a bitch, but like it is inherently true. Like if my advice to people who don't want to be on the table is don't try. Like don't try that hard. Try a little bit, like the bare minimum amount. And that's my advice. That's how you'll make sure you never end up on the table.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you read or are familiar with Peter Thiel's Outlive, his book. And
I'm not.
okay, well,
I'm not because there was it a book about walking with the fucking weighted vest on and doing like mediocre PRI exercises and telling people you lift weights with medium shirts on and a bicep. Like I don't like. What are we doing here?
so
Boomers just got to stop, dog.
100%. And up until I stopped reading after like chapter 5 to give you some any context there. But the one thing that was refreshing to hear was like he said training is the number one is the most important thing in longevity because you see a lot of people out here it's like recovery, it's supplements, it's nutrition wars, it's all these things. But it was refreshing to finally hear him say like, "Hey, all this shit's great, but like you got to train hard." And he does a lot of endurance and he like not a whole lot of strength stuff, and I'm sure you're chiming on that. But it sounds like from what I'm hearing for you, like none of the other stuff matters as much as just proper programming and training hard and the right way.
Dude, I don't want to live forever, dog. I don't want to be here long. I've done a lot. I'm almost 34 years old. Like, look at my face. Like, it's a catcher's mitt. Are you joking me?
It's
I
beautiful,
don't.
man.
The longevity thing is an insane market because no one's getting their money back if they die of a heart attack if they follow this advice. I would much rather like I don't necessarily sure like I understand again reversion to the mean, right? Oh, VO2 max, number one thing you can do for your health. It's like okay, based on people who what? But what is this research? Like, and I don't disagree.
Hmm.
It's just like, look, my parents are old and they're out of shape, and my sister's a medical doctor, and she gets really stressed about their health status. And it's like, I just think there's an understated, and I think Peter would agree, and not that I think this is ever going to reach his ears, and if it does, I don't hope this to be defamatory. I would like, I enjoy this discourse in a civil manner, but I just think there's an understated element of happiness that's lost amongst all the my parents, my dad smoked his fucking 5 packs of cigarettes a day until he figured out he was going to have my sister, and then he stopped. And then he's been drinking 3 beers a day and for 45 years. And my sister's like, "Oh, you're getting old." Yeah, I'm going to enjoy the time I have with him. And I'm not going to smack the beer at his hand. I'm not going to give him a lecture about vitamin D. I'm not going to talk about fucking, NAD drips and all this shit. I'm going to sit there and, have water when he drinks beer. And that's going to be it. So it's like what the longevity is it's wellness of 2024. What are we selling? Medicine for the not sick. And then when people get sick, it's like, well, yeah, it's like there's zero accountability. Performance has accountability, right? So it's like, and you want to talk again to steal from Stan, fucking shout out Stan Efferding. Compliance is a science. It's like I can get people on board by setting mile markers they can reach. The mile marker is not your 100th birthday. What is that party like? Does Peter come to your fucking 100th birthday? Is that what comes with the fucking 8,000 page book? Peter Attia shows up to everyone. No, right? Like it's just such a pipe dream, and look, it instills hope, and as long as it gets people moving, it's kind of like my stance on CrossFit. It's like, is it the preferred training modality? No, probably not. Is any training modality better than none? Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that, and I haven't read it all, so I feel really bad about not even getting 5 chapters in, let alone the whole book. But I'm to understand it's extensive. I just if as long as it gets people active and that brings them joy, sure. But some people, you gotta understand, there's people that have a physiological disposition to not enjoying exercise,
Mm.
right? There's people who have a physiological disposition to not having sex, and it's just like, what are you just gonna like tell them like, wow, no, you have to? It's like, nope, don't do that. That's against the law. Like that's no, definitely means no. But it's like, fuck, can we stop? Like, can we stop with the gerrymandering the lines around our particular vantage point so we can be deemed as an authority? Like, it just, it's human nature to create these cult of personalities where people are going to rally around people who they resonate with. And I'm sure there's hopefully not that many people who are listening to me going, this guy's making a lot of sense. Like, I hope that people aren't out there because it's like, I don't know if we need a world full of people that think like I do, but it's like what is the litmus test, right? So yeah, you can live for a long time, and you can do these things to statistically and potentially clinically, move that needle. But can we talk about quality?
Mm.
Ruck March? Grew up in fucking Canada, dog. Ruck March, backpack, textbooks, uphill both ways, snowing sideways for 6 months of the year. I've done my rucking. Thanks very much. I have a car now and I like it, so I drive it everywhere. Right? And it's like, what is the qual? Like, people are just they're convincing themselves, given the popularity of some of these boomer fitness influencers, that they like this stuff. And it's like there are so many ways to be happy or fulfilled that aren't just following the trend du jour of the most famous, new age Dr. Oz of the health and fitness space. So it's just like it's just a much bigger conversation that's just very frustrating because longevity is the snake oil of all snake oils, in my opinion. And people get lost in the sauce of like, these fucking lizard people want to live like billionaires and live forever. It's like, man, no, like, what kind of life when you're taking all these supplements, or a research paper could completely destroy your worldview. It's like, stop, just fucking stop. Like, there's so much more to life than that. And you're talking to me. This is all I do, and I'm going. There's way more.
I heard you say something that I
Oh
thought was
boy,
really interesting because, I mean, essentially what we're talking about is like optimization, right? That's like the buzzword of 2024 is like optimize this, optimize that, whatever. I heard you say optimize when you can, but adapt when you have to.
brilliant.
Could you
Sounds like something
elaborate?
I'd say. Yeah,
Could you elaborate on that? Yeah.
optimization and adaptation exist on a spectrum, right? Like, adaptation is raw, right? Adaptation is the big rocks, right? If we're talking about, it takes copper and B6 and B12 to process dopamine or whatever it is. It's like, okay, we're pretty far along the optimization scale, right? Adaptation is the big rocks that move the needle. They're on either end of the spectrum, right? Like, you're either adapting or you're optimizing. Now, you can talk about adaptation in like a more scientific sense of the thing that happens after a stimulus response adaptation. But when we talk about adaptations, they're usually like, for example, if someone first starts resistance training, right? So there's this sort of this neuromuscular adaptation that happens. There's sort of this well-known phenomenon, usually coined, I'm going to air quote, I don't even like saying it's so stupid, but like newbie gains. It's like, okay, it's probably something akin to like motor unit recruitment. Right? It's not necessarily anything happening to the state of the muscle. We're probably not going through any real meaningful hypertrophy or hyperplasia. It's just sort of like we're calling on all ships. And as we see kind of this like linear progression, and it's like, all right, that's a gross motor adaptation. But well, when you got people who haven't even gone through that and they're sitting there poking fucking lights on an iPad, they're like, oh, it's cognitive training. It's like, what are you, a Formula One driver? What's your back squat? 98 pounds? Get the fuck out of here. We haven't even adapted yet. And the thing is, optimization is fragile, right? Optimization is not robust. And people who are good at adapting, or look at the animal kingdom, right? Like you see some, and you know, it's funny because it's the same people who are hyper focused on optimization that are posting the scarred lion face and at 5 in the morning with the motivational quote. And it's just like that thing doesn't know a goddamn thing about. It's pure instinct. It's pure adaptation. It's not an ounce worried in its brain about optimization. All that thing does is adapt. You know, fucking there's lizards that lose their tail and they're like, YOLO, at least I didn't lose my life. Adapt, right? They're not sitting there, and we lose that. Like, I honestly think we're evolving into aliens, and optimization is the process by which we're doing that, right? Like the height, because I see people who they build, you know, they build these prisons for themselves around metrics and supplementation. And I had a friend of mine who had a continuous blood glucose reader in, and she was up super late one night, and I was just kind of chilling with her, making sure she was okay. And I'm like, yo, this reading is like low, dog, like low, low. Like if I went in the fucking fridge and grabbed a bunch of insulin, jabbed it in myself, like that type of low. And I'm like, yo, like, how are you still functioning? Like, this is insane. And she's like, oh yeah, like I don't know, like I'm like lightheaded and all that. And like dialed, dialed, like everything dialed, training dialed, nutrition dialed, sleep dialed, like dialed. And like, so here we have someone who's like, hey, I'm trying to really eke out a 1%. And like 1% of a physical bank account that holds billions of dollars is a ton of return. So like fucking right. It's like, you know, this is someone who would be a candidate for that. And I was like, yo, let's just like, let's go old school. Let me go prick your finger and let's see what like a normal reader was. The glucose monitor was reading a 2.9 millimole, or no, nanograms per deciliter. No.
I have no idea
And
what's
so
doing
Canada
that.
does it one way. So
Okay.
like an average would be like a fasting, you're waking up around 4 or under 5, somewhere between 4 and 5. And she's at like a 2.9. For example, if I was at a 2.9, I would be like not talking right. And I'm like, yo, 2.9 is low, low. And then she pricks her finger, and you know, you're getting a straight reading from, and it's 7.2. Chilling. 7.2 is me after a fucking dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. I'm going the fuck to bed. I'm not worried about I'm worried about my blood sugar. Hopefully it comes down and I'm not diabetic. But I was like, you know, that's the price you pay for optimization. There's a fragility there,
Mm.
right? Like I love, my favorite athletes are the guys that are like the John Daly's of the world, right? The Theo Flurries of the world, the guys that are just, you know, the pitcher that throws a no hitter on acid. I love that guy, right? Because that guy's all adaptation. There's no optimization. Have you ever done acid? Dog, you're not throwing shit. Like you're just in space for like 7 hours. Like if you're not on a beanbag chair, like you are in your mind. And this guy's throwing a no-no on 2 hits of acid. Like that guy's pure adaptation, right? And adaptation is raw. It's real. It's real time. But we go into this optimization space, and it's like maybe we'll realize the difference in between our 75th and our 80th birthday. It's like, nah, I'm good. I want to take acid right now, right? So it's like adaptation and optimization are, you know, there's a time for it. Like optimize as you can, adapt when you have to. That's funny that you found that quote. I don't even know where the last time I said that was. So, but I really like it, because there are a few things in my life, and I adapt towards, you know, moving these things over time. You know, like I run a fucking business, man, and I don't sleep a lot, so I have to adapt. Right. I have to adapt. I didn't need to know when I'm tired that I'm not hungry. It's like, no, dude, like you're just low on energy because you sleep 4.5 hours a night, and you have for a decade, 12 years. And it's like, I'm not going to trade the success of my business for that. So it's like that one's off the table. It's like, what do I do? It's like, well, I optimize where I can. I look at my nutrition and I go, if I ate every time I was tired and I didn't know how to, manipulate or understand that signal, I'd be fucking 330 pounds. So it's like, there's an example of I am not going to optimize for sleep. Well, it's like, says someone who makes a shit ton, who's very tired or like doesn't have, and look, how you run your business is up to you. But for me, it's like, I don't want to go to the grave spending a lot of time in a made up grave while I was above ground. And that's not like a sleep when I'm dead thing. It's like I don't set an alarm. I generally wake up because I enjoy what I like to do, and it kind of comes down to the happiness thing and fulfillment thing again. But it's like that's a non-negotiable for me because that's more important to my overall health than me living to be 75. And I've done more in my 33, 34 years than I ever thought I was going to. So like the rest of it's just gravy anyway. So it's like, that's what I mean by that. They're opposing ends of a spectrum and there's trade-offs for each. And you just have to, at the end of the day, be comfortable with the trade-offs you're making, but know the trade-off. So a lot of people are I think they're exchanging their trade-off is I'm going to optimize for social credit and I'm gonna put the cold tub. And I can't even say it, man. Like I can't even say it. I'm gonna put the cold tub Instagram day 65 of 75 hard. Like, dude, go live your life. Don't live someone else's. Go live your life. Stop. Like, just seriously. Like, go talk to someone and stop. Like, stop exchanging these tokens for social credit that you can't exchange at the end of the day. Because guess what? In a fucking month, dude, you could have a heart attack, or you could step off the fuck, or some guy rolls up on you on the fucking sidewalk and he fucking sticks a knife into your rib cage. Doesn't matter how healthy you are. Guess what? If you were big and scary, that guy's grabbing the next guy. So health optimization, here I am. Right. So it's just like, I think understanding things relative. And it's just, I just hate the idea that people are trading the one thing they can never get back for social credit that doesn't mean anything. And they're convincing themselves that they like it. And if it makes you happy, fucking fill your boots, man. Yeah, I'm all for it. Go fucking do whatever. If you love posting your ice bath videos, and I mean this wholeheartedly, post on, but I see people get out and they turn the tripod or the camera off and they're miserable. It's like, what are you doing? Stop. It's nuts. It's absolutely insane. I'm sorry this was not the podcast you thought you were going to have, but it's like,
Dude,
yo,
dude, no, because this is just real, right? And like most nobody's gonna say that, right? And I can see it's besides you and a few other brave souls, but I can just feel your passion in it. And for me, it's just like, okay, like why am I staying in and get on a Friday night when I got invited to this thing, but I'm not going out because I don't because I got to wake up and go train early the next day. But really, I have nothing to do the whole Saturday afternoon, so I could just go do it then, and I can go out with my friends and I can eat that taco or I can have that cocktail. Like it's not that big of a deal. Like you're going to hopefully wake up the next day and be able to do that thing. I'll share this with you because it's relevant to this. I was as dialed as I could have been last year in August, and from a nutrition standpoint, training standpoint, all the things. And I had a cardiac arrest at
wild.
24 years old. So like literally miracle. If there wasn't for CPR, I would be dead right now. We wouldn't have this conversation. And it just changes when you have something like that. It was just like, no matter what I do, no matter how many times I sauna or cold plunge or eat clean or get 8 hours of sleep, something crazy like that can happen. And the doctor still haven't pinpointed a reason why. So it just goes to show you that life is so precious and there is so much more to your 2 hour morning routine. And I say this as somebody who I like my morning routine. It's just something I like to do. But if I have to, if I'm on the road and I have to adapt and I can't do that, oh well. Right. And so like that's kind of just what I'm hearing from you is like, look, if you like doing all that stuff, great. But it's the cold plunges, the saunas, the grounding, the red light, like all that stuff and things that I like to do and I enjoy. But like if I can't do them, oh well. It's not life's gonna continue to go on.
I think you bring up an interesting point. There's really strong psychology around loss aversion being the number one source of regret. It's the old, like, when you're on your deathbed, you're going to regret the things you didn't do, right?
Yeah.
So you might not ever regret posting a video of you in a cold plunge, but it's like, do you know the number of clients that I've done illicit drugs with? Because I'm like, yo, this is wild. Like, I don't, I've never, well, no, I've smoked weed like maybe twice in my life. Once to know that I hated it. And then I don't know, maybe I was drunk as a kid. I was like 16, 17 years old. And then again with like a really, really famous person in a hotel room. And I was outside of my, and I don't really like, there's drugs that I like. Um, and, but I'm like, this opportunity is nuts. Like, I picked this guy up from the private airstrip, from the jet. We're hanging out. And like, I've known him for a while. Like, he's a friend. And like, he's just being polite. And I get past this fucking cannon, like the size of my forearm. And I'm like, you're sitting in a hotel room, in a very nice hotel room. It's like a fucking St. Regis hotel in Toronto with insert name of guy. We're talking about diamond teeth and, rap music videos and stuff. And I'm just like, and he hands it to you. And I'm like, dude, yeah. Yeah, because I'm not gonna sit on my deathbed like, yeah, remember that time? And I just like was no, my lungs, like, fuck you, man. That was sick. Like, I ate weed edibles with Mike Tyson that were shaped like a Vander Holyfield's ears. Like, sure, man. And it's just like, I think the loss aversion thing is big. But the thing is, like, when we take a look at opportunity costs are something that become ever apparent to you when you run a business, right? You don't have an A/B test. You have time and you have timing, and you have both of them ever present at every moment. And you need to make a decision, and you can't make you can't make opposing decisions and move forward. You're like, we're going to try this, and then that, and you can't do that. And so one of the things you factor in is this idea of opportunity cost, which is like, how long something takes to do means there's less time to do other things, right? So, like, what are the opportunity costs associated with the things you're doing? Because it's not about regretting the things you're doing. It's about not having enough time to do the things that you may have want to have done that you don't realize you did because you were too busy drinking the optimal Kool-Aid, right?
Mm.
And that's where it's like, when you look, that's why I love, um, I love artists and I love writers. Not that I'm particularly, artistic, or that I enjoy it. Like, I'll go to the MoMA, I'll go to the Met, I just look around, like, oh, that's cool. Um, but I just like their ability to deviate from the norm. And it's just like, if you look at someone like, the guy that wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, or you look at some of these eccentric, like Hemingway, and like, their breakfast is an 8 ball of cocaine. Now, I'm not advocating that, but it's like, all right, this guy can find, there's other ways to do things. And when you see like the out of the box experience, it's like, man, I don't want to live that life. Right. I go to like a sauna, like a bathhouse here when I can, when I have time. I like it. But you see the people where it's like, oh, that's your identity. I'm just me in a sauna, just chilling. And I'm not like here to toot my own. It's just a thing that I like to do when I have time to do it. I was in Miami. There's like real Russian bathhouses down there, which are wild, which are like, I like that. They're like intense. And this is like a little bit lighter, but I can tell you the next words out of this guy's mouth that's talking about, his traumas and grounding. I was like, here comes the ayahuasca talk. And, oh, there it is. And it's like, dude, you're a fucking, I got to put a quarter in you. Like, I know what you're going to say. You're like a little teddy bear at the grocery store around Easter time. I just got to squeeze your paw, and you're going to say the next hardwired phrase you learned from some bullshit podcast. And it's like, can you be a real person? And it's at the end of the day, I think what people are going to miss, and honestly, I hope for their sake that maybe they don't wake up to it because they've lost so much of their life to doing these practices that have just been sold to them through the vehicle of longevity or wellness or health, that it's the things they didn't have time to do. It's the opportunity cost associated with these behaviors that, really stopped you from pursuing or doing something or spending time with people. That's the big problem I have with it. And that's where I find it predacious, is like, you're going after people's time,
Mm.
right? The coffee enema and the sunlight on your ball sack. And it's like, man, I would much rather, FaceTime a really close friend of mine than, get a fucking red light and shine it up my asshole. Like, I feel way better talking to a friend. And if you don't, get better friends.
I think one of the a word that makes me cringe a little bit in life is balance. because I get so many people reach out to me like, how do you balance this and how do you balance that and this and that? I'm like, truthfully, there is no balance. It's just you just man. Good friend told me this and it resonates. Like you just there's just seasons of imbalance all the time, And you also mentioned like homeostasis versus allostasis, and I had never heard that term allostasis before, but you think about it in life, and it feels like in society we're in this pursuit of balance. And you think like Kobe Bryant, he was never balanced. Like LeBron James, he's not balanced. Like, Tom Brady, he wasn't balanced. None of these the best in the world at whatever they do. That's just sports, but whatever they do, like there is no balance. Return to homeostasis, but then, stress and adapt, right? So I'm just curious to get your take on like, the homeostasis versus like, what even is allostasis and how does that, we were going to go a training route, but we're just talking life here, but like from like a life perspective, what is like allostasis, homeostasis, like what is that counter there?
Right. I think most people need to accept the fact that they might not want to be great at something, and that's okay.
Mm,
And I think it's the second part, and it sounds so condescending. And that's a not you as Dom, but whoever's listening. If it sounds condescending, it's ultimately a you problem. But like, it's okay to be just okay. And there's a reason that there's 75,000 people in Raymond James Stadium, and there's one guy behind center for the Buccaneers. Obviously, Tom Brady reference. And that's because there's one guy who wasn't okay with being okay. And it's like, and this is where, there's a principle called reversion to the mean, which is basically you're going to end up smack dab in the middle of the bell curve if you start applying all of these average results, right? Done on average people. It's like, and all of the research is standardized and kind of sterilized to equate for that. So it's, there, but the mean is comfortable. The peak of a bell curve has the equal number of people on either side of it if it's evenly distributed. And it's like you kind of see this. There's research on animals sleeping, and the animal that's in the middle, like if you put, I forget what animal they use. I want to say ducks, but it sounds so stupid, and I don't know why I want to say ducks, but like let's go with it for the
let's go
sake
with
of
ducks.
argument.
Let's go with
It's
ducks.
fucking ducks from now on, and it's like you put two next to each other, and they both sort of have a similar sleep pattern. If you put three in a row, one in the middle has a better sleep pattern, brainwave activity, all that, than the one on either side, right? And then if you start stacking ducks on the outside, the brain activity changes for the ducks on the inside that have the sheltering component to them, right? They have someone else to sound the alarm when the fucking wolf comes into the duck house or whatever the fuck it is, right? So it's like, people find comfort in being average, and that's okay. And it's okay to be comfortable. But it's just like, I think people just need to be honest and not lie to themselves and accept, like, yeah, the balancing is tough because balance, going against that means that there's a sacrifice. And I think that's where the conversation goes astray. It's like, it's not a sacrifice, it's a precondition. And I think when people accept it, like their decisions as preconditions rather than sacrifices, they're not losing anything. Again, it comes down to loss aversion. Loss aversion is like there used to be apps, and I don't think they're still around now. I remember hearing about an app. I think I first heard of this principle through a Tim Ferriss podcast episode, probably honestly, dude, like a decade ago. And I thought, wow, this is really clever. The app was kind of a morose. Or, sorry, that's the second time I used that word. Was a little bit, I mean, let's say edgy, where if I is, so I forget how it worked. It basically acted like an escrow account where I'm going to put money in, and then I'm going to put in the parameters or the terms of this thing that I'm like almost like betting on. Like I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Now, the psychology is, and I think it actually came around weight loss, was like, all right, Dom, if you lose 10 pounds, I'm going to give you 5 grand. And if I said, hey, Dom, if you don't lose 10 pounds, I'm coming for 5 G's and I'm going to take it from you. Guess what Dom is going to be better incentivized to lose 10 pounds? The one that is worried about me showing up with a ski mask and putting a gun to his head and being like, all right, it's time for that pin for the debit card there, Fred. But like when you look at life as like a series of preconditions, right? So Tom Brady did not sacrifice to get where he's at. Everything he did was a precondition to get where he was. Right.
Mm,
So it's a framing problem, and people struggle with in problem solving. And that's essentially what my job is. It's problem solving. you have to be able to frame the problem properly first to expediently solve it. So a lot of people just don't know how to frame their problems correctly, and they end up really chasing their tail looking for a solution where the problem itself was your initial framing of the problem. Right? So framing life as a series of preconditions is it allows you to like preemptively kind of justify your behaviors. Like for me, let's say for example, like I romanticized about being the big guy, right? I was smaller when I was young and I wanted to get big, so I just did all the things a big guy would do. I guess no, I'll have 5 chicken breasts, like so that's a lot of chicken. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I'll just eat it. And it was weird for like a 180-pound kid to be eating 5 chicken breasts while like, I don't know, his family is just ordering like Italian wedding soup or whatever. But it's not weird for a 270-pound guy to order 5 chicken breasts. But how the fuck do you think the guy became 270 pounds? He at one point was like a 170-pound kid who accepted the preconditions of like, yeah, I just have to do this for a decade and then I'm going to be that big. So it's like, I think it's a framing problem at the end of the day. And the balance thing, yeah, balance is average. That's what it means, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And it's like there's maybe places for it. Like I'm an average pool player. I played a bit in undergrad. I got really good. I don't play much anymore. If I went to a pool hall or a bar, I can hit the thing and I can move some balls around the table. I can get some stuff. I can spin it a bit. But if you put me up against Efren Reyes or something like that, that's a really good pool player. It's like Filipino cat. He's
The
lights out.
fact that you know that, I'm like, how could you not be a
Yeah,
pool
but
player?
it's like, but he's a really good. But
Right, right,
Efren
right.
probably. So it's like pick your battles, right? And it's
Mhm.
like most people. And I think it helps to divide and conquer. Like I know the things I'm good at. And some people, it's like I have friends that are amazing parents. I don't have kids. So it's like their life is relatively balanced, but they're not balanced as parents. They're incredible parents. You know how I know this? Because I know so many people who are dog shit parents who are like, you look at their life and they might be really good at something. Right. And I think it's hard to frame that success or failure or you being a superlative or being bad at something. It's hard to frame that. Where it's like some people who probably feel or aim for balance, that could be what like when we think of a balanced life, we think of like, you don't work too much, but you still make enough money and you can provide, but you can also be present. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's okay. But that actually makes you great. That makes you great at being, a good partner. That makes you great at being it gives you the opportunity to be a great partner, to be a great father, to be a great friend or something like that. The only friends I have are people who understand that I'm going to see them for dinner maybe twice a year and I'm gonna shoot them a text at some inane time. And I have friends that I thought, and not that thought, like I had friends that were good friends, but as my life changed, I'm not good friends. I don't feel bad. Like, oh man, I really sacrificed that friendship. It's like, no, that was a precondition. I'm really good at a few things. I think I try at a few things. And so it's like, I think balance carries with it. I think most people who look at like, oh, I want to be balanced. It's like, okay, that's not a goal. Balance affords you an opportunity to be really good at something. It's just you need to figure out what that thing is. Like if you have a work-life balance, but you're not optimizing, and I hate to use the word, maybe it's the wrong word, but if you're not using that particular balance of those two dimensions, to be a superlative in another dimension that requires those two to be in balance, then yes, then it's bad. But I think, because we have social media and we look through this, the window of the Joneses or the Jeffersons every fucking 30 seconds, like we have this exposure to, the trappings of success and the private jets and, the watches or the houses or whatever. It's like, yeah, those people obviously are unbalanced, right? But it's so clear where they're super successful, where it's like they are so, if Instagram we woke up tomorrow and like the culture valued, if there was some sort of badge you got for being like the father of the year, and it was like the same as seeing like I don't know, a Richard Mill watch or a Patek Philippe, and people saw that, then people would start to shift their priorities towards being the best father. And what would happen? They would like, well, they would work less, right? They would do all of the things that are opposite to the guy who's on the private jet now in the current framework of the societal values that we operate under. So it's just like, I think people who strive for balance, I think have an opportunity to really be superlative at something. And I know people who understand this. I know people who wake up every day and they're like, man, I just want to be the best father in the world. And it's like, cool. And I talk to them, we do business together. I call them on weekends and they're not going to call me back. And I have the most respect for that because I'm like, when I'm fucking flying to Dubai and I can't call some and I forget and I'm like, oh, well, I know he's out there. I know he's chasing a goal. I know he's trying to be the best. And I'm thinking of someone in particular, and he takes that opportunity and he is the best. He is the best dude I know. He's the best father I know. When I call him on some business stuff at 9 p.m., he's not answering. But I look at that and I recognize that behavior in him, that's not him being balanced. That's him being incredible. Right. And I think a lot of people just, it's up to you to figure out what you're going to do. We know what balance means. We know that it's a work life thing. It's not prioritizing money it's spending time. It's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, then be great. Right. And if you want to be great at something and that's a hit you're going to have to take, like, I don't know. I see my sister for 3 hours a year. Am I the brother of the year? No, absolutely not. Right? She's a physician. She went to school. She left when I was 16 and I see her 3 hours a year since. She's an incredible physician. Right? So I know like when I call her and she's in the operating room, she's not going to answer because she's being great at something and she's made that choice. It's like when a friend, oh, sorry, I was watching Breaking Bad. Like, didn't that show air fucking 15 years ago? You didn't answer my phone, you fuck. That's where balance goes off the rails. That guy's not great at anything. You have the opportunity to be a good friend. Answer my fucking phone call. Right. And then it's like, that's the people. So it's like, again, probably not the conversation you signed up for, but I think it's something for people to chew on. It's like, if you are not trying to be great at something, then balance is a bad thing. But the conventional balance, as we tip the scales through our societal values, it gives you an opportunity to be great. And great at something that's really hard. Are you joking me, kids? I was just with a buddy of mine and he crushes. And he crushes on multiple axes. He's a wealthy entrepreneur, started his own business, self-made man. And he's also like, yep, nope, this is my limit. This is how much money I make. And I get to spend time with my kids and I'm chilling. It's like, you're fucking dude, you're crushing it. Could he be crushing it more by what I value, which is maybe more aligned with like the societal norms of like, run up the scoreboard, let's get this thing to an exit, let's make some money, blah, 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 blah. Sure. But he's great. He's still great. So it's like, I think that's where I have the problem.
Why do you stay out of balance and what are you striving for?
Oh, that's a great question, man. I like this. Why do I stay out of balance? Because I think everyone needs to be great at something. And for some reason, the cosmic stars shifted and I got a little bit better at something earlier. I had an aptitude for something early. Like I have a half decent memory and I can learn things quickly. And then I compounded that and leverage opportunity to find out. And now I'm in a position where it's like, wow, I never thought I'd be here. Let's see how far I can go. And it's like, I feel as if I've gotten better and I still feel like I get better every day. And, maybe it's a sunken cost fallacy, but I think I'm in a unique position maybe to have found the thing that I like, that I'm also good at, that also makes me money. And I think like there's something to that. There's a Japanese philosophy around the intersection of those things. And I
Ikigai,
like,
I think it's called.
I
Yeah.
think that's the one. Yeah. Well done.
Ikigai. Yeah.
And I think those three things are useful. So yeah, I think part of it is like, for me, if you want to go super philosophical, I think the meaning of life is to be of service. Right.
Mm,
Like, I was having this discussion with a friend of mine, about a month ago. There's a really common parable that goes around. It's called the Mexican fisherman story.
yep.
And it's yeah, I can't fucking stand it. Why? Because here's what's going to happen. Here's how the Mexican fisherman story goes. You would clip this at the 1 hour and
1
10
hour.
minute mark. And then I would start talking and you would clip it and you would put some like music in the background and you'd put captions right here. And then you're like, oh, there's a fisherman that brings out a wealthy American businessman. And the American businessman is like, well, if you hired a man and then that man could also fish with you and then you could sell the fish at the market. And then if you would buy another boat, you could hire a staff and then you could hire a staff. And it basically, the fucking story. And it's like, it gets to the end of the road and it's like, then you could retire, fish a little bit for half the day and then spend the rest of the day with your family. And everyone's like, wow, man, I see how that American capitalist just talked his way in circles. I'm like, you see how that American capitalist put the food on the table for thousands of people? She's right. Gave people opportunities to improve their life, gave them work and maybe purpose as well. No one ever fucking talks about that, and it drives me nuts. All I hear is the goddamn Nora Jones music in the background, and someone snitching on the guy who's out there trying to make the world a better place. And it's like, you want to fish? Fine, get the fuck off the internet, right? Stop trying to like influence people to just be like, this sort of like karmic, I fish for half the day and you take care of your family. If you can take care of more people, you have a fucking obligation. That's your price for rent on this planet. Get your ass up and get your ass to work, because there's people who can't. Right? There's people who, given whatever circumstance, their greatest potential is working in a fish factory. And you know what? Fucking right. Good for them. And it's a fucking grind and it's hard. But if you have the opportunity to like, hey, I could hire the kid from the fucking local town to come out with me, then I think it's so short-sighted. And it's such a sign of the lazy fucking times that we're in, where people look at that and they listen to the bullshit, they read the quote and they share it a billion fucking times and they shit on the capitalist who actually takes the risk, who actually does the work, who actually helps people, puts the food on his family's table and 1,000 others, and it goes, no, I'm just going to go fish. It's like, God, you son of a bitch. If you fucking can, you fucking should. And it drives me nuts, man. And it's just like, why? Why? Because you're fucking lazy. That's why. So to answer your original question, why do I stay unbalanced? Because I can. Because I can. Because I don't have to. The peak of my ability is greater than that of welcoming people at Walmart. Not that there's any, and I mean this wholeheartedly, not that there's anything wrong with that. Right? There are people who are in situations where that is the purpose for them to get up. And you know what? I fucking dab that guy up every single time, because I know that he's trying to be great. Right? It's the fucking person who doesn't try. It's like, that's the problem. Right? And so dude, it's so frustrating. Like, it's every day of my life with this shit.
Yeah, dude, there's a parable or a quote that's been said one too many times that goes along with like basically everything we're talking about here. But I just think of the Arthur Brooks, who's an author I really like, in his book The Second Mountain, where you try to get up the mountain and it's like you're chasing success and fame and money and whatever, and then you fall, you get to the mountain, whatever, not as fulfilling as you thought. You go back into the valley, and it's like, what do I do now? Second valley, like you just said, service, like having some sort of being able to like give is so fulfilling and so meaningful. But in order to get to that place where you can give, like you have to be in a position where you're not like scratching and clawing for every dollar that you get and paying rent and covering groceries and sending your kids to school, so that you're able to then go and do those things and serve and volunteer and do all the things. So like having a for-profit business, like doing these kind of things where you're able to give and serve, like it's not necessarily like a bad thing. And I've had to change my mindset around that.
Yeah, I think a principle that people talk about is the hedonic treadmill,
Yeah.
that you're just running on this. It's like, yeah, but what if we're born to run?
Mm.
Then the treadmill's fucking great. I don't care. Like, I mean, physically, I don't actually enjoy running, but I love the idea of just getting up and chasing something that's never going to be there.
Mm.
And it's like, there's a presence that comes with that. And I think people are just, they're so lazy, and they'll use any fucking dharmic, karmic, fucking incense burning excuse to justify them sitting around in their fucking underwear all day. And it's like, okay, cool, man. Yeah, yeah, no, Mercury's in microwave or whatever the fuck. Like, no, you're just a lazy piece of shit who does it. Do you know how few people in history move the needle of human society? You know how few it is? Like, all right, depending on the books you read, let's talk about documented history. Let's go back maybe 2000. It's like a dozen. How many people are alive right now? 9 billion, maybe, give or take some change. I don't know what the current ticker is saying. And it's like maybe two. It's not more than 100 that have like just like, oh my God, the dark ages. And then a few people came around and were like, we got you. And everyone else was sitting around going, wow, the Mexican fisherman, it really resonates with me. It's like, you fuck, you ungrateful fuck. Like, oh, it's so frustrating, man. And look, like, I'm not fucking Madame Keurig. I'm not Oppenheimer, but it's like, God damn it, man. Like, I'll sacrifice a few hours of sleep if I can try and do something cool while I'm here. And to me, I'm capable of more than just waking up and dropping a line in the ocean and feeding a small family on the coast of Mexico or wherever the parable goes. And even if it's only marginally more than that, then I'm going to do whatever that marginally more is.
I love it, man.
I'm
I
so
would
sorry.
dude, please don't apologize whatsoever, because the great thing about this is we can always do another podcast. We can always talk about the best ways to put on muscle. We can always talk about the best ways to optimize your sleep and, feel better or look better. We can do all that stuff, but it's very, very it's not very often that you get to have just like a real raw conversation with somebody who's just like in the jungle, you know, fighting the battles, trying to, chop down tree. I don't know where this analogy is coming from, but just trying to clear the path for others, right? And so that to me is like what you're trying to do is just be a model for just going out and pursuing it. And we were talking about this before we hit record, is like we've done, 800 podcasts collectively, right? And like we still couldn't get the freaking video to and sound on. Like nobody knows what the heck they're doing in life. So this was honestly like a conversation that I needed to have. Just because I've been in my brain like, what are the things that I've been giving up to optimize, right? And it's like at this point in my life, I'm a healthy 25-year-old dude. Like I will adapt. The body is incredibly adaptable. So for anybody listening, like, I hope just take this into account. Like you can have that Krispy Kreme donut. You can have that beer with your uncle at Thanksgiving, whatever. It's not hopefully going to kill you right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good takeaway.
I appreciate you, man. The last thing I wanted to ask you is a question that I ask every guest on here, and I'm really curious what your answer is going to be. This is the Pure Ambition podcast. So I ask everybody what that phrase, pure ambition, when you hear it, what comes to mind? What's the first thing you think of? And then how does that apply to your daily life?
I think it's an afterthought. I think it's a byproduct. I don't think it's something that you should sit down. I think a lot of people waste too much time writing their goals down and not realizing them. I'm in a position I am because I said yes and figured it out. And look, and I think maybe a meta principle might be like, look, do things your own way, but and look back and I don't think it's the thing that you can decide, right? Like, I don't think I'm an asshole, but I don't really. It's not up to me. It's like a Schrodinger's cat. It's almost a quantum problem. It's like depends on the observer, right? And like if someone views this in a way and I'm in a certain position relative to their orientation, I can see where I come off abrasive and brash and an asshole, and I'm okay with that. And I have that same vantage point of them if I was digesting something of them and without knowing anything about them. So I think the idea of ambition and being ambitious is like the premeditation of success. I think is really takes away from the ever present experience of trying to pursue it.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people, like, I've never written anything down. And look, this is me. And I'm going to double back to this. And I want to say, I've never, and I'm not saying to anyone to do this. I'm saying to find out what your thing is. And then, ambitious is like kind of being an asshole. Like, I have friends that are ambitious. I don't think I'm ambitious because my orientation next to what I see as other people embodying the definition of ambition is I'm not doing nearly enough. Now, it doesn't slow me down. It motivates the fuck out of me. But I don't really know if I don't see myself as ambitious. Like ambitious for me would be like taking time off, or like that would be, oh, that's ambitious. Like if I think about like, oh, that'd be hey, can we take 4 days off and like no cell phones? I was like, I'll give you 20 minutes. We do 20 minutes. Like 4 days is ambitious. So I think it's there. And again, it kind of speaks to the times of everyone is so deliberate with the process of being successful that they let it pass at least the experience right by. Business could all go to shit tomorrow, and the way I carry on, I'm surprised we haven't just been fucking taken off the map entirely. But I think at the end of the day, it's not up to you to decide, right? Like it's an inventory, right? It's something where it's like, where did you start? What is the delta? I think that's what ambition is. It's like, what is the start and end point? I can tell you where I started, and I can tell you where I am, and I can tell you where I aim to go. And I don't know. I couldn't predict. I don't know. I couldn't predict 10 days ago that I would be here. So I'm not going to try and predict 10 days from now, but it's like, it's not up to me to decide. So when I think pure ambition, I think it's a byproduct, or it should be a byproduct of going out and just doing work, push rocks up hills for long enough time. And then when someone goes, man, that rock moved really far. And I mean that not in a Sisyphean metaphorical way, but it's quite literally in like a real way. I'm sure whoever has the Guinness World Record of pushing the rock the furthest, everyone would look at it and be like, that motherfucker had ambition. But it could literally be the mindless task of waking up every day, and regardless of what anyone says or how anyone feels about your rock pushing endeavor, if you push that fucking rock long enough, you're going to get that Guinness Book of World Records, and someone will look back and be like, man, your father was ambitious, or like your grandfather was ambitious. It's like, what did grandfather do? It's like, grandfather fucking pushed rock more than anyone else. And there is a metaphor in that, but there's actually a very literal sense to that. So I just think I would almost, and not to be not on brand on your own podcast, but I would advise people to at least consider in a plethora, endless, infinite number, sorry, of ways that they could go about life. Consider the potential or the possibility that just working really hard. Look, there's this thing, like, I wake up early, and there's an anti-work collective that's coming out in the bro entrepreneur space that I find very, very annoying, because at the end of the day, sometimes it's not about making money. It's like, I don't wake up early to build wealth. I wake up early to build character, because it's something I don't want to do. Because you know what's something I don't want to do every day? Push the fucking rock. But I do it anyways. So ambition should be, I'll say it for a third and final time, it should be a byproduct. And that's not your story to tell. You just merely start pushing the rock, and someone will tell their grandkids or their friends or someone in the street, like, hey, that guy's ambition. But once you start writing it on your fucking mirror every morning, that's an opportunity cost. That fucking Sharpie on the mirror is time you could have been spending doing the thing. And guess what? You're going to get beat in the rock pushing Olympics by someone who didn't fucking write it down in their journal every morning.
I love it, man. I appreciate you for just showing up, being
Thanks for
raw,
letting me yell.
dude. I'm glad that if this was something where you just needed to release all that, I'm glad I gave you this.
That's my fourth time having this conversation today. I'm just yelling about this shit all the time. I just think it's what people need to hear.
Well, 4 different audiences are going to be able to have some incredible takeaways.
They're going to think 4 different people are going to think I'm an asshole. That's what's going to happen.
Hey, man, you wean out the wrong ones, it'll strike with the right people. So I appreciate it, man. I really do. So
pleasure,
if people want to check out, if people want to check out more of your content, see all the realness, the rawness, and hopefully principles to apply to their lives to up the quality. Where can they find you? Where are you hanging out at?
At @the_muscle_doc on Instagram. Or that's probably the best place.
Love it, man. Thanks, Jordan. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. I wanted to give you all a heads up too that I launched a free community on the Upspace app where you can join, ask me questions, connect with like-minded individuals, follow my 4-week running and strength training program that has some dedicated mobility sessions in there as well, so that we can all optimize our health and fitness together. So if you're interested, head over to the App Store, download the Upspace app, and join the Pure Ambition community today. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.